Okay, this is a video by Olay. This is 6 days ago. And I'm gonna react to this video. And she says America is not left. And yeah, she's right. Oh, then America hates the left. That's her video. And she's saying that, yeah, I would agree to that, but the polls came out. This is before the polls were finished. They finally counted the election, and he won by 1.4%. So America is, maybe she's right. America is more, maybe in the middle, moderate, I would say. I wouldn't say they're left. I wouldn't say they hate, a lot of them hate the left. She's right about that. So Americans are basically like moderate. Either they're Democrats or they're kind of independent, or they're MAGA. So I don't think any right-wingers, any conservative people, they're most of the conservatives are MAGAs. That's what I think. But here she, I guess, I didn't start from the beginning. I just start. This part is great. Because she goes into why they're losing this and that. And this is expand from her other video. First video was about like this after the election, where she said commonly lost because of America's racist. And she expands on this. And she's, the only thing I push back on is, if you want America to vote for you, you have to be, to go to your side, you have to, it's kind of non-productive to call everybody racist. But in general, yeah, when America is, yeah, it's kind of racist, but not everyone's racist. But you have to win their side. But you can't like suck up to the racists like these, like Cenk Uyghur's doing in TYT, some of the left are doing. There's a lot of them, I think a lot of Americans are independent, and they don't like Trump. You gotta get those people. And some of them voted for Trump when the Americans are, so you gotta get maybe the 30% of the so-called Trump voters. Some of them are independent. They voted for Trump. They didn't like the Democrats, but they're not MAGA per se. They're not the MAGA people. Most of them are not MAGA. Some of them are, but most of them are not MAGA. So you gotta get those people on your side. I'm gonna start it, folks.
If we're constantly downplaying the impact and threats of these kinds of content and the ideologies that they espouse, especially when it's all significantly more popular than any explicitly leftist political content. None of that happens if we refuse to see our pop culture and social discussions are truly political in nature and affect how people see the world around them, and thus what kind of politicians and legislation they will support. We also cannot do this following the white leftist model of trying to strip race and gender from every analysis. Bigotry and hate is not as nuanced as we insist on pretending it is. It's not economic anxiety or any other term people have grabbed on to explain why everyone but Black people voted for a white supremacist. It's more than class. Anybody peddling this idea that the working class was abandoned to explain why white people voted for a white racist like they always do, when the Black working class all chose not to vote for a white supremacist, and Biden's administration has allowed for some of the biggest union wins we've seen in a while, is wrong. And I mean that, even if Bernie Sanders is the one who said it. So many people want to divorce race and gender from the analysis.
I think Bernie said it too. She's right. Bernie's wrong. He's kind of a sellout anyways, or so-called, he's a hypocrite, Bernie Sanders. That's another story.
So Kamala Harris's loss, even though it's inextricable from any...
She's right though, they're white leftists. That's how you can't have, to all the Black leftists out there, you can't trust all white leftists. All you Black leftists. you gotta have certain of them, certain. You gotta have like certain allies. You gotta be careful who your allies are, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Meaningful analysis of how a white supremacist who was impeached twice and incited an insurrection be a far more qualified black woman who served in every branch of government. The mere fact that Kamala Harris is viewed by many of the left as a moderate, or maybe even a right-leaning one to some, and she never once ran on or even mentioned identity politics, trans issues, being woke, or anything else that the right was able to convince the majority she represented, and even many of the white liberals and Democrats echoed these outright fallacious assumptions, is proof of the fact that she wasn't listened to. Who she actually presented her.
Actually, even the people on the Democrats, white Democrats, say she's they're echoing that. You're right, saying that she's woke. Or she's using identity politics, but she's not. That's what they would say. I mean,
herself and her beliefs to be why they ignored this.
Even so-called some black leftists who do that. They use identity politics, and he was Mark Lamont. He was sort of going that route. She's using identity politics, kind of. And certainly RBN was saying that. Then she's using identity politics. But she didn't really. So she talked she's saying that she talked differently to black people than white people. I don't know. But a lot of black people do that. I mean, they talk in code. I mean, African American, a lot of African Americans do that. You talk differently to your community, than other communities. And but everybody does that. Every ethnic group does that. So they pin it on her like that. That's kind of unfair. Now looking back at it, it's kind of unfair. I mean, a lot of politicians do that. White politicians do that. They talk differently to certain groups. I mean,
counted, unheard, or disbelieved. And that is itself proof of how misogynoir and white supremacy functions. This effort by white people on both sides of the aisle to render race, gender, and the intersection of both irrelevant to Kamala Harris's loss is reductive, lazy, and useless. And I want to emphasize not just race and gender, but the intersection of both. Because people think Kamala Harris's identity, and thus people's perception of her, is as simple as being black or a woman. They dismissed the prejudice she faced and the unique perception and obstacles she was up against as a black woman by comparing her to Barack Obama, a black man, or Hillary Clinton, a white woman, as though these experiences, identities, or plights are all the same. They are not. Black women are not either black or woman. We are both. And that brings about its own specific obstacles. The function of white supremacy is to create conditions where white people are presented as having done exceptionally well or having been exceptionally great to explain why a mediocre white person benefited from a system meant to benefit them. And that's what this post-election whitewashing has been. It's been to paint Donald Trump as an exceptionally great candidate who ran an exceptionally great campaign that was more nuanced than we got, while doing everything imaginable to paint Kamala Harris as a bad candidate and responsible for not coming out on top in a system.
I don't know if you just said he's a great campaigner. I think they're kind of saying that he's a bad, he's saying that the Democrats and they're a bad campaigner. I don't think they're saying that now. Maybe people on the right are saying that. The right-wing channels. But people on the left and then even the mainstream media, they're saying that Kamala Harris was the Democrats did a terrible job. Like they were terrible. This is 6 days later, but now they're saying that Harris and her campaign did a terrible job, and they went on. They've been interviewed. They won't take any blame for it. Her campaign advisors did a terrible job. But anyways.
designed for her to fail, where somehow the only truth can be that she just wasn't good enough, that she just didn't do enough. I hate the white leftist tradition of trying to present as progressive and woke by acknowledging racism and misogyny in the abstract, but always dismissing.
I agree. Like TYT. And TYT is terrible now. You're having a meltdown, folks. TYT and Destiny. Destiny's terrible. I don't think he's a leftist. Then Vosh. But even RBN kind of. They say that. They're saying that she's kind of they disagreed. But you want a Jimmy Dore. But I think she's wrong. But even because the majority report and some leftists, like they would say, they wouldn't go all the way. At least some of them are the ones that agree. They don't go all the way. They said, yeah, it was a part of it. But she's right. Because the others ones, there's other leftists that say, no, it's not because of that. And, Mark Lamont Hill, he said there it is. But we have to overcome that. Or was, no, it was Hassan Hassanabi saying that. Hassanabi agrees. Hassan Piker agrees. But he said they should know about it, they should have to overcome. He said maybe having progressive policies would overcome that if she had run a campaign like that. But I don't know, maybe he's right. But it's not all the left, not all the white left. I think most of them, the ones that are good, are majority report. I think they believe that they would say almost, you could say, yeah. And Emma Villains, I think she thinks that. Because she thinks more misogyny. That's why she lost, not really race. But she would acknowledge that. So they almost agree with you. Some of them would too. So not all the white left. I mean, I realize that now after listening. I mean, that was 6 days ago. I would agree with. I would say, yeah, you're right. But no, not all the white left. I think some would say, yeah.
It an application, fighting hard.
It's certainly not not the Democratic left. The more like the progressive left. They would agree that yeah, it's misogyny. But not the Democratic, not the centrist left. No way.
Hard to have class reductionist arguments for why everything happens, and to
class
dismiss race, gender, and intersection. White people in the world around them have an instinctual vested interest in always coming up with a non-bigoted explanation for why white people support bigotry, and we're all forced to live in their delusion. But I refuse. We do not have to overcomplicate this. What's the reason Trump's most successful commercials attacking Kamala Harris were the ones painting her as an ally of the trans community? Because America hates trans people. Not because trans people have done anything to them, not because the trans community is even big enough for most of these people voting against them to encounter a trans person, but simply because it's that easy to turn Americans, the majority, against anyone they deem other. We can keep going down this list. Here's another one. What's the reason Trump can promise to not just mass deport undocumented immigrants, but to reverse the naturalization, literally strip citizenship from people who are already citizens, who did it the right way? Why can he promise to end birthright citizenship and Americans cheer for him? Because they hate immigrants. A fact they...
She's right, folks. They hate immigrants. I agree with her 100%. But this thing is not just America. This thing is going on. Not just America, some other countries too. Up here, Canada, a lot of people don't like Indians. I mean... It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say, but... And, yeah. About the trans, I think trans immigrants are worse. I think they hate immigrants more. Trans, they do. I think trans people, it's kind of different, because it's kind of, people they think it's kind of, weird sometimes. Seems kind of weird. It's hard to understand. I mean, like some people, yeah, they hate the trans, but some people are not. I think most Americans are not. They don't understand, and lack of understanding, I guess. I mean, certain things, like they don't. A lot of people don't know. There has to be a lot of education, and yeah, so it's a mix of understanding, and with the kid, with the trans kid, that's another thing too. So it's more nuance. Yeah, but I think in most part they don't like Americans. They don't, and most people don't care. They don't really care. I think the trans. I mean, they care that they can do what they want. Like their body, they could do whatever they want. I think. I mean, as long as they're not like they don't want them to be discriminated. I don't think they hate trans, like she says. I don't think it's hard to understand that issue. It's like nuance. And there's a lot of transphobia, but there's a lot of misunderstanding. I mean, yeah, misunderstanding, and but I don't think they hate them. They could do whatever they want. We don't really care. I don't really care what they do. They could, you know what I mean? It's not an issue for me. They could do what they want. I mean, not gonna. I don't want them to be. Like Americans don't want them to be discriminated. They don't want, and then they said they're being attacked. They're being killed. In some cases, a lot of cases, we don't. I don't think Americans want that to happen to them. You know what I mean? But the immigration is different. Like immigrants, definitely, they don't like immigrants. But it's a worldwide thing.
Scream from the rooftop every second of every single day. I am exhausted of people trying to pretend this nation and its inhabitants are something it's not. Because again, we cannot fix our problems if we won't acknowledge they exist. We cannot sit by and watch right-wing propaganda become more and more popular without being checked for years on end, or worse, lean into their framing, and then convince ourselves Democrats could have overcome deeply ingrained right-wing sentiments in 3 months had they simply spoken to left-wing belief systems. The Democrats in our failure was not failing to stand up for these communities during Kamala Harris's 3-month campaign. It's the failure to do it adequately for years, while Republicans passed more anti-trans legislation in the last several years than ever before in U.S. history. And mainstream media leaned completely into Republican hate campaigns on trans people, and even independent media like TYT, home of the progressive left and largest independent leftist media.
Oh yeah, this is TYT. Well, it's worse than that trans. It's, homeless people too. And crime, all kinds of crime is a lot of crime. Crime's going out of control, according to TYT.
Actively insisted that the left should completely ignore trans issues because the party doesn't support it, and even eventually lean fully into anti-trans arguments and talking points. And that is truly not a dig at TYT or blaming the left. It's just illustrative of the problem we have on our side of the aisle, and I am focused on what we can do better on our side of the aisle. We cannot simply ignore right-wing hate, and it's also woefully insufficient for us to simply respond to it after allowing them to...
That's what they do, they ignore it. TYT, Mundell came out, and that's what he was talking about. They're ignoring the hate, the MAGA hate. Some of the MAGA people they're hating.
Struck these harmful and ignorant narratives, and to lead the conversations. We have to understand that people...
And then Sabi Saps came out. I watched she covered it. He's saying that MAGA people, you shouldn't have said that about MAGA people, but she's ignoring the fact that the MAGA, some of them are racist and transphobic and bigoted. I've got the Trump supporters, but she's trying to defend her audience. Her comment, she has MAGA audience, Sabi Saps, so she's trying not to defend them. But she's ignoring the fact that some of them are terrible.
People do not just embrace left-wing ideologies in a vacuum because they're better for everyone or more intelligent, which they are. Getting people to embrace left-wing and progressive beliefs and agendas requires us to first help them unlearn their right-wing belief systems before we can even begin educating them about left-wing ones. It's a process, and it's a process because we quite literally live in a country that systemically and institutionally indoctrinates us to believe in gender roles, in the patriarchy, and sexism, and racism, and xenophobia. In capitalism, that's why it's so easy to get people on board with platforms built entirely on hating trans people, hating black people, hating women, hating immigrants, and keeping us all out of the rooms they
Capitalism. That's what she has the word there. That's it. Capitalism.
Don't want us in, and then calling it a culture war. That does not mean that we should move right. It doesn't mean either us or the Democrats should abandon our message.
She's right. The culture war. Yeah, that's what they do. Or it's woke. If you believe in DEI, I mean, it's woke. And some of the left channels are doing that. Yeah, some of the left channels, they do that. They bought into that. Even the black left channels, mostly the white, on the right, they buy into that actually. And the conscious channel, they buy into the woke. The woke means aware. But yeah, they bought into that foolishness. Yeah, for you're not against diversity. I mean, everybody should get a shot. That's what it means. I mean, doesn't mean you're unqualified. I guess we go back to the old days. That's what they want. They want to go back to the old days where they're only whites only, I guess. So that's what they want.
Messages or each other. It means we have to contend with reality and stop believing there's a quick fix. Which is why it's not enough to respond to the horrible things Republicans want to do to trans people or immigrants or women or people in the criminal system by telling them it's horrible. They don't care because they think it's the way it should be, that it's the natural order of things, that it's what's right. We can't ignore, downplay, or dismiss the onslaught of attacks in the trans community for at least the last 4 years and then expect people to give a that Republican bigot Nancy Mace is working overtime to ban trans employees in the federal government from using the bathroom because they've been consuming propaganda for years that have told them that trans...
I think she passed it too. They actually banned it.
people are a threat to them and their safety. We can't just respond to attacks in the trans community. We have to actively advocate for them first. We have to educate people about gender roles, about binaries, about patriarchy, about the murders and violence that trans people experience at higher rates than any of us and everything in between. And we can't educate any...
It's going to take 4 years to do that. I don't know. It's going to be a long 4 years. Or even 2 years. To educate a lot of people. Maybe just, I don't know. Maybe it's wasting your time. Everybody doing that. I think next time, get enough people to go on your side. I guess that would help. But for the next 4 years, if there's going to be a 4 years, there may not be an election. I mean, I can make more video on this. But I don't know. It might end next year. America, who knows? I don't know. Educate. Some don't want to be educated. How about that?
Anyone about the humanity of trans people. We have to show them the humanity of trans people. Well, and that requires us to give trans people seats at our table. Not just to advocate for themselves, but to be seen.
It's going to take longer than the 4 years to do that. I mean, and there's other issues, but I mean, and how about immigration? There's going to be other issues, I mean, that are important too.
It's so easy to other people you never truly see or hear from. It's very easy to convince people to believe lies about people if they never get to hear those people's truths. The same is true for immigrants, homeless people, people within the criminal system. The list goes on. We have to educate each other, and we have to craft our messages to quietly address people's preconceived biases and misconceptions out the gate. not because I agree with or think those preconceived biases and misconceptions are justified, but because they're there, and we have to first tackle them to get people to hear our point. This is something I consciously think about whenever I think about how I'm going to approach advocating for any issue to the public. Take, for example, Rikers, or even abolition as a whole. I can want people to oppose Rikers in the criminal system as a whole all I want. And I can think that the reasons they should are all that's just or logical. But I have to recognize that the majority of people are not inclined to agree with me, because everything they've been taught to believe about police, prisons, jails, and the people who find themselves trapped within the criminal system tells them that police are the good guys, prisons and courts are justice, and anyone who finds themselves on the bad side of the criminal system are the bad guys.
It's all propaganda by the media and the society in general, with the mainstream news media and the Hollywood media. It's all propaganda.
Deserving of what they get. So I have to work from there, whether I want to or not. I know that when people think about Rikers, its infamy precedes it, and they believe that it's an exceptionally horrible place for exceptionally horrible people who've been convicted for exceptionally horrible things. So whenever I talk about Rikers, the first thing I mention is that it's actually a pretrial detention center, and the people there have not been convicted of a crime, they just don't have the money for bail. I don't say that because I believe we should only have compassion for people who haven't been convicted or people who may be innocent. I say it because I know it dispels their preconceived misconceptions and biases. Similarly, whenever I discuss abolition in depth, I go out of my way to explain that when I first heard about abolition, that it sounded crazy to me too. And that even as a person who knew prisons, police, and the courts were unjust, it was still hard for me to conceive of a world without them. And that I didn't suddenly become an abolitionist overnight after reading Our Prisons Obsolete, because it's impossible to simply abandon the entire foundation for your beliefs the first time it's challenged. I go out of my way to say that because it's necessary to make people feel like it's safe for them to keep learning more, asking questions, exploring issues, and coming to conclusions over time, that I'm not indicting or hating them for not switching over to my side immediately, even if that's how I feel internally or what I would like to happen. Meeting people where they're at does not mean allowing them to stay there. It means building your arguments from there, choosing messages that will resonate, but
I agree.
Never abandoning the causes and the communities. None of
Drink yogurt and TYT. Yeah.
What I'm saying means that I believe I or any other leftist or the left as a whole is responsible for the position we find ourselves in. I'm simply diagnosing where we're at and trying to figure out how we can better bring folks over to our side as someone who has managed to persuade tens of thousands of people to support some of my arguments, whether you like me or not. Today's video was brought to you by...
Big point. There it is, folks. What do you think about that? So Olay 2.0, and she said, why they hate America hates the left. When I saw this first, I thought, yeah, but now, as I would say, she's right. They hate the left, but now I'm thinking the election came out very, very close, and despite the electoral college, it was very close. The popular vote, Trump got 76 million or 77. Kamala got 73. A couple of 3 million, 4 million votes apart. So I think it was a 50-50 election. The country slightly to the right. And they hate like a lot of them do hate the left. Even the Democrats. You say the Democratic Party and the so-called moderates, they hate the left. Some of these white moderates, they really hate the left. And they're not really leftists. They're just liberals. I guess liberals are part of the left, but liberals, to me, they're more like centrists. So even the liberals hate the left. They disdain the left. So it's more like America hates, they hate the left, but I think it's not it's close. You could say some of the country, some of the parts of the country, they hate the left more. They disagree with the left more than the other. So the moderates, the right wing, and the independents, they don't like the left. But I think it's more slightly to the. What I'm trying to say, that America is slightly to the right, or even moderate. They're more like moderate center right, but it's very close. It's not what I think. Like a month ago, I would say, yeah, they're really America's really right wing, but now, yeah, I would think that. I think you're right. A lot of the left actually. She's right what class reduction is. They're more going towards that. A lot of the white liberals are more kind of racist than you think. That's another thing too. She really called out them. She didn't say they're racist. See, she has to realize. I guess she meant everybody, but I think she was saying more the on the right, they're racist. See, she has to realize that America, they're on the left too. They're racist on the left, so she has to realize that too. But she didn't really call them out. I mean, she's saying they're reductionists. Just want to do like class, really white working class. But some of them are racist. They just want, yeah, white working class. They just want to focus on that, and they heck with minorities. They don't care about minorities. Some of the white left are racist. But she's calling out the MAGA. But you have to look at the other side too. They're racist. So she don't want to really defend, upset them. But yeah. Anyways, folks, I'm gonna end this video. It's Olay 2.0. And yeah, America hates the left, maybe. Okay, folks, I'm out.